Welcome to Six Count. I'm your host, Xara Wilde, bringing you the jazz and swing scene from the Capital Region. Colleen, thank you so much for letting me speak with you.
My pleasure.
Well, I've heard so much about the musical family that you grew up in, and I would love to hear a little bit about what that was like. I hear that your mom, Helen, and your father, Norman, were big influences, I'm sure. So can you share a little bit of what they did and how it was like to grow up with them?
Absolutely. It was so much fun. My childhood was awesome. I didn't have the same childhood as a lot of the kids that I went to school with. I went to a Catholic school. And I remember a lot of stories where the nuns used to ask what we wanted to be when we grew up. And most of the girls wanted to be teachers. Mm-hmm. Most of the boys wanted to be firemen. And then there was Colleen who said, I want to be a singer. So they looked at me. They looked at me funny. They looked at me funny, but it's been great. I have 3 older sisters that are also singers.
Wow, okay.
I do. But growing up, my parents were huge influences in my musical career. My mom being a singer, I wanted to be just like her when I grew up. And I think I've managed to do that because a lot of people that have heard me over the years, even if they didn't know who my mother was, used to come up to me and ask me if I was related to Helen Pratt.
Wow.
So that was the biggest compliment for me. And my dad was a trombone player. And both my parents, although they've done many, many musical things over the years, over the last 25 years of my dad's life, played with Skip Parsons, and my mom was the singer with Skip. And I know that you just interviewed Skip.
Yes, he was the pilot episode for
Excellent.
Six Count.
Excellent. So therefore, growing up with it, and have had the opportunity to work with friends of my parents and colleagues of my parents. So in my mind, I worked with some of the best musicians in the area. A lot of them are no longer with us, and a lot of them are still here. But what an honor to work with the people that I grew up listening to. And they started calling me to sing with them. It was a huge honor.
And I was reading from your website that you do ballads as well as some pop and Motown. So how would you say your style has evolved over the years, and what's it now?
Come on, I was a disco queen in the 70s. I guess when I started performing full-time, I did whatever the music was that was popular because it was a steady gig. I worked 6 nights a week for many years. I was very fortunate to work a really busy schedule, and I worked with some great musicians over the years, great bands, but covered different styles. I mean, we just played everything, and that was fun. And it wasn't until I started working days that I realized that my time was very valuable, and I wanted to sing what I was most comfortable with. And that was the Jazz Standards Great American Songbook. And I've been really happy doing that.
And I also wanted to ask, I know that your direct parents were in music, but I also heard that you are the niece of Bobby Pratt. Tell me a little bit about his influence on you.
My Uncle Bob was such a humble man for what he has done in his life and his career. He's in books about jazz. He's on several recordings of great jazz musicians that I know the names of, but he never really, when he came up from the city, I lived in Manhattan, but when he came up, it was about family, and he would sit at the piano and play with us and have a great time. And when he did come up and play the jazz clubs in the area, he used to travel with Roy Eldridge as his piano player. But at Jimmy Ryan's in New York, he was his trombone player 6 nights a week. So he was played both piano and trombone, which my dad was a trombone player, and Bobby was his baby brother, so it was kind of cool. But my uncle was very humble, and it wasn't until years later, and ultimately when he passed away, that I realized what he's done. We went to his memorial service down in New York City, and Tony Bennett was actually the opening speaker at his memorial. My uncle used to play piano for him when he was a singing waiter before he was famous.
I remember now Skip telling me about this.
Yes.
That must have been an incredible moment. You weren't expecting him coming, right?
Well, I didn't. I think I had heard about it, but to spend time with my family the way he did at the memorial was pretty special. My dad was very ill at the time, so he couldn't go. But my mom and my aunt, my father's sister, Tony Bennett, spent time with them and spoke with them. And it was really, really nice.
Yeah. And how long were you in Manhattan?
For the service, literally Skip booked a bus, and we went down on the bus, a bunch of us, and came back because my dad was very ill. So I didn't spend much time down there. But as far as when my uncle lived there, all those years he played at Jimmy Ryan's and Eddie Condon's, which was another famous jazz club. Every family vacation, that's where we went. Another strange story about childhood and grade school. You know, where did you go on summer vacation? All the kids, oh, I went to the beach, or I went to the, Florida. I went to Manhattan, went to jazz clubs. I was a very strange child.
You must have been the coolest one, though, I imagine.
I think so. I'm not sure Sister Ann thought so.
Okay, so you would visit in New York City, but have you mostly been around here for most of your life?
My musical career, I did travel, just not extensively. I mean, there were bands that I worked with 6 nights a week where we had to travel a little bit. I didn't do extensive traveling. We would go up to Maine, down to the Poconos, Atlantic City, did that kind of traveling, but I never did extensive traveling in music. Once it came to that point where the music scene in the Capital District was no longer 6 nights a week, 5 nights a week, and I couldn't make a living doing music here, the decision had to be made, do I go on the road or do I stay here and choose another career? And it was tough. It was really hard.
And ultimately you chose?
Well, I didn't really choose anything other than getting a day job to see how the other half lived and see if that was something that I could do. And I ended up getting a job in a bank for a very, very small wage. But it was more about getting benefits and seeing if I can get up every morning at the crack of dawn and work 8 hours a day. And what I found was that I really liked it. I loved working with numbers, and it started a whole new career for myself. I get to leave my stressful day job and put a microphone in my hand at night, and everything's right with the world.
Right.
I'm very lucky. I really consider myself very lucky.
And where can people find you now?
Where can they find me? Well, I look at ColleenPratt.com to see where I'm going to be. There's some months that I work a lot, and there's some months that I work my 2 steady gigs, which is I have once a month at the Stockade Inn here in Schenectady on the 3rd Thursday of every month, and then at Panza's Restaurant in Saratoga, which I've been there for better than 17 years, I want to say.
Wow. And
with the wonderful Peg Delaney and her husband Bill Delaney.
Yes.
And we've been doing that for quite a few years.
And Peg Delaney is the pianist.
She is. Okay. Extraordinaire.
And how did you two meet? And get to
if you ask her, it's going to be a totally different story than what I'm going to tell you.
Okay. I
Will you be speaking to her?
She is on the
Oh,
list,
no. She's going to tell you a very silly story about how she was my teacher in elementary school at this Catholic school I went to. She was student teaching.
So she heard where you were going in that.
I'm just not. We have the little conflicting details on the story. But moving along, Peg and I, we've known each other forever. I knew her brother, Ed August, when I was singing folk mass at my church. Ed was very involved in one of the church groups, and we just became very good friends. And I would sit at the piano, and he would play, and I'd sing, and that's how I met Ed. Actually, before my recollection of me, before I met Peg.
And I've also seen that you play with Doc Scanlon.
Doc Scanlon. Actually, Doc is in Barcelona right now. He actually relocated to Barcelona a few years back, but he comes back every summer, and he actually has Reggie's Red Hot Feet Warmers that play at Saratoga Racetrack. And while he's here, he usually books at least 4 or 5 jobs for Doc Scanlon Band, reunion band, and we all get back together, and it's a lot of fun.
And how long were you playing with him and with that band?
Oh, several years. I mean, I remember the first gig I did with them was in Atlantic City at the Resorts International on New Year's Eve, and I want to say that was back in the 80s. So most of these bands that I'm talking about, we all freelance. So we work with so many different people and so many different times of the year, and that's what's great about the music that we do. When I was playing 6 nights a week, when I was doing more of the commercial music, that was steady bands, and that was Lou Alonso and Emergency. I was with them for 2 years, 6 nights a week. I was with, several Denny Lombardo and Lake George 6 nights a week. So that was different. Now it's more freelancing, so it's so much fun to be able to just sing with so many different great players, great bands.
It sounds like there was a time where the 6 nights a week was very common, and it sounds incredibly grueling to do that and to be up late at night. And so even
I was 18, it was a blast.
Who needs sleep when you're 18,
exactly.
I guess. But
I don't think I could do it now, but back then it was a lot of fun. And we all did it. I mean, you speak with any musicians, they're going to tell you that they did it full time. They did 5-6 nights a week.
That sounds like a really sweet time, and also like there's a lot of nostalgia now for it. But it also seems, moving forward to today, that there is this more freelance gig type of economy with jazz musicians as well, and maybe there are some pros to that too.
I like it for the simple reason that I am just actually very recently getting to play with incredible young players, some of which you've interviewed. Tyler Giroux, what a fine musician he is.
Yes.
I mean, he and his brother are amazing. I worked with their father.
Oh, okay.
I was in a big band with their father, and their father was the kid in the band and they're just, to have the opportunity now to work with such great young players. I'm meeting them week after week. I'm being introduced to these players that, I don't really know their names other than, of course, when I knew their parents. But getting to work with them, and they're some great musicians in this area. And they're just making them younger and more talented every day.
That's great to hear. I feel like the basis of this project was to hear the wonderful stories of those who are carrying jazz to the next level and keeping it alive. But my big question was, what is the scene, and is it healthy and thriving? And it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, that there is a lot of great energy going into the scene. But what would you say?
I think so. I really do. Again, I don't think I'm in the heart of it. I'm at this point where I'm watching it. I see it in the paper. I talk to young musicians that I get to work with, and they're working constantly, and they're traveling. They're doing great gigs. And I'm really happy for them. I had my fill. I had a great time doing it. I'm not done. Don't by any means. It's not over for me. But I guess I'm at the point where I'm happy to do the gigs that I'm doing, and I'm not going after every gig that comes out, every new club that opens up. I'm not knocking on the door. And it's not, please don't misunderstand that being an egomaniac, because I'm not. It's more about, let these kids work. I mean, this is what they're doing now, and I have so much respect for them. I did it, and it was a blast, and I have so much respect for them. They're out there hustling, getting the work, and I think it's great.
You must be a wealth of information for all of these young musicians. But for anyone who has not been lucky enough to meet you, what kind of advice might you pass on to them, to those who are the younger musicians right now?
Anyone I get the chance to talk with about music, just when I can see the passion that they have for what they're doing, just keep doing that, and don't stop. And the more you do, the better it's going to be. Not just the talent-wise, but the gigging. The actually going out there and working in the clubs, the relationship you have with the club owners, the relationship you have with your audience. It's not about what we do for ourselves, it's about what we do for them, because it will come back twofold. I've been so fortunate to have the people that come out to see me that I really sing for them. I mean, I love what I do, but the energy is both ways. And that would be the best advice I can give any young musician. Have the energy, love what you're doing on stage, because that will go out there and come right back at you.
And kind of what you put in oftentimes is what you get back to.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back with Six Count. I'm your host, Xara Wilde. Stay with us. We'd like to thank Giants of Jazz Radio, based in Lancashire, England, for airing this show. The station brings you the best in classic jazz, playing tracks from the 1940s through the 70s. You can support the station by visiting their website at giantsofjazzradio.co.uk and clicking donate. And now, back to the show. I want to hear a bit about your more memorable gigs. I was reading that you did an opening act at Proctor's, which sounded pretty special.
I'm incredibly flattered that I was able to open for Bob Newhart, just as nice in person as he is on TV. But that was incredible. My mom always told me, when I was young, she always dreamed of me being on the Proctor stage. And I'm very happy to say that she was with us when I was on the stage opening. I had an 11-piece band with me. They gave me 40 minutes. Being on the stage, the curtain came up, the spotlight hit me. I can't even tell you what that felt like. I don't have the words.
Do you feel like you remember it in ultra detail, or kind of don't?
Absolutely. Okay. I just can't describe it. What comes over you. I mean, it was the most amazing feeling ever.
And then to know that he's backstage waiting to go on as well. I think
that was really cool too. I mean, the whole thing was just really, and he was so gracious. I mean, we spoke after the performance, and he came back years later. I don't remember exactly how many years in between, and his manager called me and they requested that I open for him again, which was
wow,
ultimate compliment. It was very humbling.
And you've also played with the Casanova Jazz Festival. Can you share a little bit about that experience?
They invited us back several years in a row. Now we're getting into Colleen Pratt and Friends, which is a great group of musicians that I've had over the years. I mean, so many wonderful players have been a part of that band. I'm happy to say we did a ton of weddings over in the 80s and late 70s and early 80s. But after that, we got more into the jazz thing. We were doing jazz festivals and great musicians. One in particular I want to mention is John Nazarenko, who teaches at Skidmore, Saratoga. I have to mention John because he is absolutely responsible for me recording. He convinced me to do he tricked me into doing my first CD. It was at One Caroline. And he tricked me into doing a live recording that evening, said it was for his project. And I was just singing on it as his guest. And it ended up being my CD. And I have a lot to thank him for. He's responsible for the second CD, which was Ain't Misbehavin', which he actually, it was his idea to have my mom on, so we were able to do a couple of duets. And that was all his idea, which I am eternally grateful for. And then the third CD, which is the big band.
I Thought About You.
I Thought About You, with the Empire Jazz Orchestra. He engineered, produced it. He was the engineer and the producer. And he produced all my CDs. But that was a lot of work. That was a 2-year project. And I had a wonderful executive producer on that one who financed the project, who was incredible, Tom Pierce. It was great. So that was a big project. And the fourth one was also, John and I talked about doing a Christmas jazz CD.
Oh, yeah.
So we got together and said, let's do that one. So again, so that was the 4 CDs that John produced.
And is it always different depending on the CD in terms of how it comes together? It sounds like the first one for sure, because you said tricked into doing it. But is that process kind of similar with it, or how do you know, okay, this is the selection and how that all comes together?
I think we talked about a few tunes we were going to do that night. It was going back to the early 90s now, so I'm trying to remember the best I can. We did talk about tunes we wanted to do, and we did them. Some, and they were all live. We didn't go back and start a tune again, but just whatever it was. And I'm sure he cleaned up whether he wanted to keep. We took some tunes out, left some in. But again, that was all John. The second one we did in a studio, and with my mom in a booth, and got her to sing a little bit. Quick little story about that second CD is Ain't Misbehavin' was the recorded duet my mother and I did. That song, and that was supposed to be it for the duets. And we were done recording, and John now we're mixing, and he says, we really need one more tune on the CD. I said, John, don't you have my mother warming up singing Pennies from Heaven? He said, yeah, let's listen to it. And we listened to it. She sounded great on it. I said, look, suddenly have this urge to do this Natalie Cole, Nat King Cole thing. So I went in the booth. I said, watch me. And so we took her voice out, put my voice in, and made it a duet. It was really cool.
Oh, wow.
And ended up just being amazing. It was pretty cool. My family got a kick. My mother had a kick at it. My sisters cried. So it was fun.
And was the CD kind of what brought you and your mom together to do those duets in the first place? Or is that something you've been doing?
No, we've been doing this. Again, I used to tease my audience. I used to say, are you guys here to see me or my mom? Because my mom was so supportive, and she used to come to my gigs, later in life, because she was always working. I mean, my parents had gigs every weekend. Skip was very busy, Skip Parsons. So there wasn't a weekend they weren't working. But later in life, after my dad passed away, my mom used to come to a lot of my gigs, and my sisters would bring her to see me, and I always would get her up to sing because she was a crowd favorite, And,
yeah.
I really think people came to see her and not me, but I got over it. I got over it.
Oh, well, that's great. Is there anything else you would want to share that I haven't asked yet?
Oh, again, I want to thank you for asking to interview me, because it's, again, I don't do this full time anymore. And I'd like to think that I have a few good years left. I want to continue to sing. It's brought me more happiness than I can tell you. And I hope that I continue to put a smile on a few faces out there.
Well, I can't wait to find you at your next gig. Colleen, thank you so much.
My pleasure, thank you.
Is upside down now. Trade them.
Thank you for listening to Six Count. I'm your host, Xara Wilde, and that was Colleen Pratt. This show is listener supported. If you're interested in contributing to the project, you can find the link to our donations page on our website at sixcount.simplecast.com. Your support is greatly appreciated. You can let me know what you thought of the episode or who I should speak to next by emailing me. I'm at sixcountpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find me on Twitter at sixcountpodcast.